Thomas Green here with Ethical Marketing Service. On the podcast today, we have Andy Gwynn. Andy, welcome back.
Thank you, Tom. It's good to be here. Different office this time.
Well, I said before the call, I thought that was a background, but that's actually you in sunny Spain, right?
It is. And I was last time, but I was downstairs in Mary's office, which we're now calling our office, and she wanted it back for some webinars she's doing. So I'm actually on my roof terrace, and we've just been playing around because it's overcast, and the last week was clear blue sky. So it's just getting the trials and tribulations of living and working in Spain. But we're going to talk about goals and I guess dreams. So I just needed to make sure the sun wasn't in my eyes. So you got the chimney, but this is the wall. And I'm looking down the valley over there to the sea. So it's not a virtual background; it's the real background.
Yeah, I'm not envious about that at all. Being in the UK.
I'm sure you won't be.
But we were going to talk about the concept of achieving goals versus setting goals. And I spoke to you before about the fact that there's a lot of information about the best way to set goals and a lot of generalized principles on that, but maybe not so much about the actual achievement of them. And I thought if anyone will know about this stuff, it will be Andy Gwynn. So what are your thoughts on generalized principles around the achievement of goals?
Thank you, Tom. Well, I've certainly got an opinion on them. So it's an interesting subject, isn't it? Because there is lots talked about. But shoot, we'll explore it because I've got a bunch of opinions that are things that I think maybe just distinctions that people are missing out on.
Well, everyone's got their own goals, right? So, my goals are going to be completely different to your own. But one of the things, like I said to you before, one of the principles that it made me think of is your influential in the property space. And one of the things which is recommended is, like, if you're trying to achieve something, there's the who do you know who principle. So if you're trying to get something done and you don't know how, then who do you know who will be able to help you with that. And I just thought there might be some other things that you will know that our audience won't know, or something you might be able to share in addition to that.
Sure. I'm not sure about my internet connection. There's a goal is to get better power over here. I think it's a great question. I think if we chunk it right up, I would say ask yourself better questions. So just often when talking to people about setting goal, and I'll come on to the who do you know who, because I think when you say people know about setting goals, I think we've all heard of it, or a lot of people have heard of it, but how good are they at doing it? So there's a couple of things. First, one, I think we've heard of SMART goals, but I actually call them smutty. I don't go with the achievable and realistic, because I think there's a temptation there for people to undersell themselves. There's a great friend of mine who did a lot of research and interviewing top achievers around the world. And they all said they set the proverbial big, hairy, goals, and then worked out how do we go get them. And when mentioned achievable and realistic, someone quoted to my friend, so are you telling us we're setting our kids up to be mediocre? And that really hit home for me the first time I heard of it. Because can I climb Mount Everest? Yes. Is it achievable? Yes. But if I want to do it tomorrow, no, it will kill me. I'm unfit. But that's a timed thing. So I think specific, measurable, and timed. And I think the key thing is the specificity. They're all important, but so often I will get property investors send me their goals, and I can always get more and more specific. And I think the more specific we are, your RAS, your reticular activating system, which is the focus in your mind, if you like, it's a physical piece of the brain that when you focus on something, it notices things associated with it. So this can be the who do I know that might be able to supply me with a PA, or who do I know that might be able to help me achieve this goal, and you will notice more about it. And years ago, we did decide to employ a PA, and the day we made the decision, I went down the pub and a mate said, do you know anyone who wants a PA? And I said, well, you're kidding me. Have you been bugging my office? He said, no, my wife's just been made redundant, needs a job. Well, if they'd have asked me a month ago, I'd have said no. So to be constantly verbalizing and focusing on your goals is a way for things to be achieved, I think. But yeah, and the other one as well is I often ask people, well, you've set a goal. Do you believe you can achieve it? And they go, well, I'm not sure. So then I will say, who do you know who might have already achieved that? So you're talking about property investors. If someone wants £1 million portfolio, who do you know that's got £1 million portfolio? Well, them over there. So therefore it must be possible. So you can often shift that doubt or that belief around to, yeah, for me personally, I've only got to find one person or know of one person that can do it. And it's so easy to find out there now with, what we can find on the internet. So who do I know that's achieved it? Then that's powerful for a few things, isn't it? One is, yes, now I'm confident that it's possible. Might have shifted my belief. Secondly, can I go hook up with them? Another great phrase a mentor coach of mine taught me years ago was, you will achieve plus or minus 10% of your environment. So we're talking about how do we get the goals? Well, if you want the £1 million portfolio, who do you know that's got £1 million portfolio that you can go pick their brains? You can go network with them. Well, when I was employed as a sales manager on about 40 grand a year with an Audi A4, 5 weeks holiday and a certain pension, the two friends I'd meet up on a Friday after work for a beer, guess how much they were earning? Plus or minus 10% of about the same, with the same sort of car, same amount of holiday. So when I set my own business up and I wanted to build a business to become financially free, I would network with people who had already achieved that, to pick their brains, but also, I guess, learn from osmosis or by osmosis. So yeah, it's a great question. Who do you know who?
So, I mean, the couple of things that I took from there was when you're trying to achieve it, be as clear as possible. Like, the clearer you make it, the more likely it is that it will be achieved. And then find someone who has already done it. And I mean, how would you go about doing that? Let's say, like you say, you use your £1 million property portfolio, and you find someone who's got that, already achieved that goal. How would you approach them?
Would you approach them? Oh, that's a great question. Go ask. I think it depends how you ask, but I do believe successful people are happy to share and want to give back. I did years ago have a girl who said, will you mentor me for free, and will I mentor her? And I turned her down because I was that busy. I was doing some volunteer mentoring work and I couldn't commit the time. I had to make a rule in my life with how much I give and how much I'm working on my own business and with my own friends and family. So it's okay to say no, but it wasn't that I didn't want to share. It wasn't that there's a difference between scarcity and abundance. And I think most successful people, whether they're property investors, entrepreneurs, or professionals, not that property investors and entrepreneurs are not professional, but you know what I mean, they'll be happy to share. So I might not ask someone to mentor me every day, but I might say, hey, can I take you for lunch when it's allowed? Or can I have can I have half an hour of your time? I had a 16-year-old guy ask me if he could have an hour's call with me to pick my brains and to learn from me. And I said, yes. This was a couple of weeks ago. A property investor I met at a PIN meeting. And at the end of it, he said, and what can I do for you? And that's just awesome. Was I happy then to have given my time to him? And if he'd have said that at the beginning, would you be more likely to? So it's how you position it, but go ask them, be mindful of their time and what you're asking them for. But also there's so many different ways. Property is a great way now, because you can say, well, I'll be your apprentice. I'll be your gopher. What do you want me to do? If I can pick your brains and learn from you over a call or a few days or a few weeks or a few months, what can I do for you? This guy said, what can I do for you? I said, actually, you can source me a property in this area because we're looking for something. So go ask them. If you don't ask, you don't get, do you? What's the worst they can say? What's the worst they can say? No, I guess.
Well, yeah, you made a point there, which I think is important, and that is, even if you do say no as a mentor, it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't want to. It just might be that you're busy. So I think if you were on the other end of that, being the person who's asking for it, you kind of think, oh, they wouldn't want to speak to me and that sort of thing, but that's not necessarily true. And the other point that you mentioned was, if you ask for someone to mentor you, the mentor to be may not actually know what that means. Am I opening myself up to years of time and effort? Whereas if you ask for, like you say, an hour's call or half an hour just to pick your brains, that's a very different proposition, isn't it?
Definitely.
Have you got any thoughts on micro goals. So if someone had this, as you say, big hairy macro goal, how much further would you break that down?
I think it's important to break it right down to the day. Mary and I have a saying that says a week at a time, a day at a time, a step at a time, a week at a time. I think the challenge with the big macro goals, and I certainly struggled with this in my early years of focusing on goals, was there's a big disconnect. So for me, I wanted to live abroad. I didn't particularly want to work. I want to be financially free. I wanted to live abroad. And it was a huge goal because it was, well, how do I do it? How do I get clients and run my business abroad? How do I afford it? And two things. One is definitely break it down into, and Mary, for those people that's listening, she has a membership program called 90-Day Planning. So for nearly 20 years, every quarter, we've put business owners and property investors in a room and helped them facilitate their plan. Because your business plan's got to feed your personal goals. You know, Michael Gerber wrote the E-Myth Revisited. He says, start with the end in mind. My business is a means to an end. I love it. And it's about helping people, but it's also got to help me. So it isn't just a business goal of I want to make X. It's I want to make X in order to be able to do Y for myself, whatever the personal goals are, and everyone's personal goals will be different. Mary's now put that online. There is a free Facebook group called 90-Day Planning Free, 90-Day Planning Free. People can go join that. And there's a lot of resources around exactly what we're talking about now. And so we would talk to business owners about what's your 3-year goal? What's your big vision? What does that mean in a year? Where do you want it to be? And personally, I think people what's the saying? People underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years and overestimate what they can achieve in a month. But I actually think when people say to me, well, somebody said it the other day, I want X amount of properties, X amount of revenue in the next 5 or 10 years. I can't remember what he said. And I went, why? Why 10? Why not 3 or 2? Because I think we can achieve more than we think. But then you've got to break it down. What does that mean in a year? Where do I want it to be? What are the milestones we hear about? But then what does that mean in a quarter? What does that mean in a month? And for me, what I'm good at focusing on is what do I need to do this week and today to move things forward? I actually struggle with the putting together a quarterly plan. What am I going to achieve every week for 12 weeks? Vern Harnish, who wrote Mastering the Rockefeller Habits, who is a master of scaling up big businesses quickly, talks about identifying your top 5 priorities, whether that's for the year, for the quarter, for the month, for the day. What's your top 5? And then what's the one of 5 come heck or high water that you will achieve? And I sometimes think 3 is even more manageable than 5. But for me, that works. What do I need to do today that's going to move me forward? And for me, it is about focusing on the micro steps. Yes, I still want to picture the bigger vision because you have to. The human mind can't tell the difference between what you're visualizing and what is true if you visualize it often enough. One of the big things that worked for me for getting this house was we spent 4 years where the other thing I say to people is see what you can do to experience some of your goals. So in simple forms, if you want the car, go test drive the car. You've experienced it. It becomes a bit more real, a bit more tangible. It's not like there's a car over there, I can't see how I can afford it. If you've driven it, test driven it, it's more real, it's more tangible, you're more associated with it. So we would spend 16 weeks of the year traveling. We had timeshare, we would travel, I would work from abroad, I'd come back after, and more than just a fortnight's holiday for me. I'd go out there maybe for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and I'd come back and go, did it? I can work from abroad. So what's the difference between that and the step of actually buying somewhere, making it more permanent or more regular? Suddenly the connect was closer. It wasn't as much of a disconnect. So what can you do to achieve your goals? Think about what can you do to experience some of it? All right, if you say I want £1 million, how do I experience that? Well, maybe I've got to go buy the first house or do the first thing, but I don't mean go and spend out of your means. I remember years ago, a colleague of mine had been told to do something similar, and he went and bought a share in a racehorse and nearly went bust. That's not what's meant by go experience it if you can't afford it. But what could you do? You know. So yeah, definitely for me, it's about micro goals, but keeping associated, keeping the vision of the bigger goals. And you've definitely got to celebrate the steps. And again, human beings are wired to move towards a vision or away from pain, and a different level of on that continuum. And I know I am wired to move away from pain. So if I'm losing a sale or going bust, I'll take massive action and I'll change things. And I would do that more naturally than be focused on the vision. But the challenge for some people for that is I've only got to move an inch. So I make one small sale. It's no longer as painful. So I stay where I am. And I've had to learn to really, really, really focus on the vision, write it down, picture it, storyboard it, meditate on it, sit and visualize it and think about it. Like I say, go and experience it regularly, or experience some of it, because I had to build that vision to move towards. It's like a magnet. And at the same time, I can build up dissatisfaction to move away from it. But if, like I say, if I just focus on that, then I may end up stopping. So for me, it's about the whole mix. I guess I don't cook much, but I guess it's like cooking. You don't just put your most favorite ingredient there. You don't just have the meat. You have everything else with it, I guess. And it's all of these pieces that add to the momentum, I guess.
Well, you mentioned making it more real for yourself. That one of the examples that I've heard regarding property anyway is go and view properties that you might not be able to afford yet, because it kind of makes it more real. You know, I'm interested in this particular property, even though you can't afford it yet. On the topic of visualization, let's say someone's never actually put that much time and effort into visualizing, other than literally holding it in your mind. What would you say? Have you got any other tips on the topic of visualization?
Yeah, I think do it. I think trust the process, because for me, human psychology with anything is it's easy not to. And I think if we boiled all this down, someone said to me, what do you attribute to success, or what's your number one tip? I say, be totally or brutally honest with yourself, because we ignore things, we delude ourselves, collude with ourselves. It's easy not to go to the gym than to go to the gym. So Jim Rohn quoted, there's two pains in life, the pain of discipline or the pain of disappointment. You talk to a professional athlete about their discipline, there's no question that they don't do things, and they do it consistently. So I think just do it. We hear so much. We hear the story of Jim Carrey visualizing, was it the first 20 million pound check as a film? He used to go and sit on the Hollywood Hill and picture it every day for years. Oprah Winfrey did something the same, I think, about winning an Oscar. And when you try it, things come and happen, and it would be easy for the cynic to go, oh, it's coincidence, but I don't actually believe in coincidence. But I also have reached the point of, well, if it's coincidental or not, does it matter if I'm getting the results? It seems to be that I'm achieving more of the things specifically when I'm visualizing, meditating more. There's a great book called The Miracle Morning, and I've forgotten the guy's name. You may well know it. Mary, my partner, just espouses it. She's been practicing the Miracle Morning for years. And part of that is visualization, but part of it is about writing and goal setting. The distinction I got from that, Hal Elrod, H-A-L, and I think it's Elrod, E-L-R-O-D, or Elron, Elrod, I think. Can't not find it. Distinction I got with him, when I first read that, I was looking at wanting to set the goal for emigrating, moving abroad. And one of the things he said was, picture how you want your life to be day by day. And the distinction for me was, wow, what I've realized I don't want is just to move to Spain and just have the same life, but I'm in the sunshine, which is why as a kid, when I was in my early 20s, I knew I didn't want to move abroad just to get another job. So I was working in a warehouse back then. I didn't want to be working in a warehouse in Spain. That wasn't the dream. The dream was financial freedom and travel as well. And at that point, then I started to picture, what do I want my day and weeks to look like when I'm achieve my goal of being in Spain? There's a big distinction. And in other words, more detail around the goal, wasn't it? We talk about getting specific. The more detail, it's not, I just want to move to Spain. It's what will I be doing on a daily basis? How many hours will I be working? Where will I be going? And picturing it. And the more I've done it, the more things have shown up. Is it coincidence or not? I don't care. Let's have some fun. Let's play with it. It seems to work. So trust the process. I remember years ago studying with Keith Cunningham, who was Rob Kiyosaki's sort of rich dad. This guy is a big Texan, made 100 million on Wall Street, lost 100 million. I did a 4-day boot camp with him. And he said he had a thinking chair. And I'm going back, what are we in 2021? I'm probably going back to 2009. So maybe 12 years ago or so. And he said, I have a thinking chair that I sit in for an hour a day. No pen and paper, no writing goals, no nothing, just thinking. And I went, you are kidding me. There's no way on earth am I going to take an hour out of my day just to do that. I might take an hour out to write and goal set, and no way. Guess what I find myself doing now? Things get busy and I go, I'm just going to go and sit up here on the terrace, close my eyes, look at the calm, turn the radio off, no man-made noise, although you might be able to hear the bandsaw with the builders down there. But I'm just going to think, because when I think, I get clarity. And at the end of it, I go, yes, okay, I've got some things I'm going to do. And I found myself in the last few years just taking some time out to think, meditate, breathe, what do you want to call it? I used to go to the gym and the swimming pool, and there was a sauna, and I used to love sitting in the sauna on my own because it'd be quiet and I could just empty my mind. And that's when good things come in. We know what to do. We might know that we need to learn a skill, but we know what we need to do. And we just get busy and overwhelmed. You asked me right at the beginning of this call, how's things? I mean, it's busy. It's always busy in business and marketing and sales and goals, because it's always busy. So we know what to do. We just get in overwhelm. And I think it's even worse nowadays because there is so much more with social media, so many platforms, so many things. You know, property investors, when I meet property investors for the first time, so many of them are in overwhelm. And so there's a long answer. I think the answer is do it. Just do it. Go play with it. Go trust the process and test the process. What have you got to lose? Is your life and business and goals going to slip away if you don't take an hour a day or half an hour a day or whatever it is? No way. Go test the process, and definitely have a look at the Miracle Morning, and get clear and be honest, be brutally honest with yourself.
Well, so far, and correct me if I'm missing something, we've got clarity, we've got a mentor in the Do You Know Who, we've got making your goals from macro to micro, so breaking them down even to the day if that's necessary. We've got visualizing, and also making it as real as possible. So with the example being, you know, if you want to have a particular car, then you go test drive it. It makes me think, when you've got those micro goals, I think at that point, when you've got such a detailed plan like that, it becomes a lot like, how do you keep yourself on track with the detailed plan? So have you got any thoughts around making sure that you're on track? I suppose measuring your own performance might be one way of putting it.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, Tom, because you and I know each other and we have different styles of working. I think I talked about Vern Harnish's Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. What's the top 5 priorities, and what's the 1 out of 5, come hell or high water, I'm going to do, whether that's today, this day, this week, this month, this quarter, this year. I think keep it simple. What I'm passionate about is the 80-20 rule, Pareto's law, that says, and it's a great, I learned it, I'd heard of it, but I learned it at the Open University doing a management course. It's a management philosophy that says 80% of your results will come from 20% of your efforts. And that's applicable across everything, really. For most businesses, 80% of their sales come from 20% of their customers. For Mary, my partner, 80% of her clothes she wears 20% of the time. 20% of her clothes she wears 80% of the time. 80% of your time you spend with 20% of your friends. So my focus each day is, and I do believe is less is more. What's the 20% of stuff that's going to give me the 80% of results? Because if we're not careful, I can. A daily plan is like a to-do list, isn't it? Really, people might look at it differently to that, but I've got the plan, which might be the bigger picture, but by the time I bring it down to the week or the day, it's more of a to-do list in my mind. And if I'm not careful, I can have a massive to-do list and a massive plan. So it's about keeping it simple, I think. And what's the 20% that's going to give you the 80% of the results? And yeah, check in. I stand up and speak about things, and I say to some people, how many of you wake up in the middle of the night with a pen and paper by the side of your bed going, oh, heck, I forgot to do this? And that's because your unconscious mind is very powerful and it doesn't sleep. And so when you're quiet, your conscious mind is sleeping. The unconscious mind's going, oh, you forgot to do this. Wake up and make a note of it. So when I started getting to the end of every day going, what have I done today against my list? What do I need to do tomorrow? And I'll make a list of what I'm going to do first thing. I wasn't waking up so much. Same thing at the end. So at the end of every day, I take 5 minutes and review, and it's actually empowering to recognize what you have done, sort of pat yourself on the back, because people that are driven tend to beat themselves up rather than build themselves up. I'm great at doing that. And then at the end of the week, I'll take a little bit longer on the Friday before I shut the office and go through my list. Have I done everything? What haven't I done? No point beating myself up. So what am I going to do Monday morning? And what am I going to plan for the next week? Because that sort of clears my mind. Why on earth do I want to be angsting over it outside of work and in the middle of the night waking up? So I think getting clear on that. So a review end of each day. And so that's your measurement that you talked about, I think. At the end of each week, it's no different than the end of each month, having a management meeting, and at the end of every quarter, having a quarterly planning day. And yeah, you've got to be able to measure. I mean, that's a key business principle, isn't it? You've got to be able to measure your activities. I've been in businesses when I was employed where we were reaching points of measuring things for measuring sake. So again, the 80-20 rule, what's the 20% measurements, key performance indicators, that's going to give me the 80% of the information? Is another great phrase. And I've got coaching clients that just recite this now. Your numbers dictate your activity. Because what's my goal in business? I want to make more sales. Well, I want more members to my post-party club. We were talking about that. So what numbers do I need to look at? Well, number of members. That will dictate my activity, won't it? If they're ahead of where I want them, I might sit back a bit. If they're not ahead, I'm going to do some more marketing or some more sales. So what marketing am I doing? Well, I'm running a webinar a month, and I'm speaking on 2 other people's webinars a month. So there's my numbers. I'm doing 3 speaking gigs a month. Is that enough? Well, if I'm getting the sales I want, yes. If I'm not getting the sales I want, no, I've got to change it. My numbers dictate my activity, and it can be simple. But my big warning is it's just to measure the key. I think the word in KPIs is key performance indicators. And sure, that gets more. I'm the sort of, when I say the opposite, you said you need numbers. Your opening gambit to me today was how's things? And actually we're doing well. But for me, there's always more and always more. And I've had to temper that. So I come back to the principle of being open and honest with yourself. Learn to understand your style. And ask, where does it serve? Because me constantly not being satisfied doesn't serve all the time, does it? It will serve to reach some goals, but our business is the best it's been for over a decade because of what we've created with some new product and service. That's why I'm taking more time out and chilling and relaxing and having a better time. Now, you could argue, did I need to get there first? Actually, what would have happened if I'd have focused on the 20%, done more visualization, done more thinking? Would those results have come quicker? I think they would have. So I just see it as one thing feeding the other. So yes, of course, measure it. I can't get over obsessed with it. Is it going in the right direction? What else do I need to do? What do I need to do today? What do I need to do this week? Are my goals clear enough? And also the business goals with personal goals. Because so many people are just focused on the business goals. And I know we need to make money to survive and live. And I personally had an issue, a challenge with the fear of going bust over years. So it's about understanding ourselves again.
What do you think about the concept of the accountability partner?
That's an interesting one. I think I'll go back to the point of understanding yourself. Humans struggle with accountability, because if I'm holding myself accountable to you, then I've got to do it. And I go back to what I said earlier about, for us in our mind, it is easier not to do something than to do it. So if I say, right, I want to make 10 sales calls a day, it's easy not to. I've only done 8. Oh, that's okay. I'll go and have a cup of tea. Do you know what? 8's better than 5, and I'll let myself off. Whereas if I say, I want you to hold me accountable to it, and you're going to give me a hard time, or you're going to post it out in the public domain, or do whatever to help me become to take more action, then it's easy not to be held accountable. My background, as you know, is as a business coach. Big part of that was holding people accountable. I remember years ago, a lady saying, I've done more in my business in 90 days than I've done in 2 years. And I said, how come? She said, because I told you I was going to do something, and there was no way on earth I was coming back to a call to have you ridicule me, smirk, whatever. So her pride, her ego, her whatever was, if I've said I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. It's whatever works. I've had others where I've put my prices up to them, because when they've paid that, they made damn sure they do it. So it's back to understanding yourself. Personally, I have a very high internal mechanism for holding myself accountable. I am my own worst or harshest coach, critic, accountability buddy. That's not to say the context where I've had accountability buddies or coaches, because again, if I commit to somebody, I tend to do it even more. So yeah, I was almost making excuses then as to why I might not have somebody right now, but I live and work with Mary, and we're sort of, but we're not as accountable to each other as we could be. There's a big thing. Because people might say, oh, well, I've got my business partner, or we're spouses and business partners. It's not as easy. Mary and I have been living and working together for 18 years. You definitely collude at some level. So yeah, I think, again, ask yourself, where do you need the accountability? Because when I've been in an environment, if I say I'm going to do something to somebody or for somebody, or I'm going to do something, tend to do it. And it doesn't matter the reason why, does it? I'm not bothered. I have a big mantra that says, what other people think of me is none of my business. Too many people are hung up what other people think, so they won't pick up the phone, or they won't get on stage, or they won't do whatever they do. I think if it works, whatever it takes is another mantra Mary and I have. So yeah, find the best way. And I think I used to sell business coaching, and I used to get far more people not buy than would buy. Otherwise I'd have been retired by now, wouldn't I? And I think they just thought either it's too good to be true, or they don't need it, or I think they're not honest with themselves, going, well, actually, if I take you on in whatever format, paid or unpaid, then I'm going to have to do it. I remember saying to a coaching client once, they were telling me what they wanted to achieve. Let's say it was 100 grand's worth of sales, and how clear the goals. And I said, why don't you share these goals with your wife and your kids? And they said, but then I'd have to do it, wouldn't I? And I went, isn't that the whole reason? Can you imagine if you said to your kids, I'm going to buy 6 houses in the next year, and it's going to make me 6 grand a month, and then I'm going to be able to take you on a holiday to blah, blah. Can you imagine every day the kids going, hey, Dad, how have you got on sourcing properties? How many have you seen? How's your negotiation skills? What do you mean you've only got 1? How many more viewings do you need to do to get the 6? Can you imagine the accountability? And this guy's words to me on the phone was, well, then I'd have to do it, wouldn't I? And I just went, why are you paying me? How serious are you? You know, if you're serious enough, you'll get it done. And that's the other thing. It's about, and that comes back to the visualization, the experiencing it, building it up. I picture how crappy I feel if I don't get it. I picture how good I feel when I do get it. I go test drive it. I go do whatever and associate it. I focus on the goals. They're on the wall. They're written down. It's there all the time in your focus. You get driven to it. So if you're serious enough, you'll do it, won't you?
Yeah, I certainly think there are some people who have goals who are not serious, and if you are serious and you make that commitment, then it's more of a public commitment, isn't it? But you touched upon something which, and I do think that there is a difference between a mentor and a business coach. So another thing might be that you get a business coach to help you go through that process. But one thing that we've spoken about previously, which maybe you might be able to shed some more light on, is affirmations. Do you think they have a place in achieving particular goals?
Absolutely. unequivocally, because our unconscious mind, we believe what we tell ourselves and what people tell us if we are told it often enough with enough energy. And I think it's passionate. I think our unconscious mind is infinitely more powerful than we could perhaps understand. Why can people walk hot coals barefoot? Why can mothers lift cars off kids? I was watching David Blaine on YouTube yesterday, get a radio host stick a ice pick through his bicep. My friend Sanjay's done it with a needle through his hand. How come? What about the Shaolin monks and all of that? Absolutely. If we tell ourselves something often enough, with enough energy, then we will believe it. And I think if you tie that in with visualization, I was a business coach with Action Coach, Brad Sugar's incredible coach, mentor, teacher, trainer, entrepreneur, worth 100 million. Go look his stuff up. But we call them IVVMs. Idealize is the first thing, I for idealize. So we're talking about writing goals, getting the ideal, what you want, how much, SMART goals, get the ideal. Visualize, IV, visualize it every day, like we just talked about. Verbalize it, IVV. That's the affirmations. Because you're right about mentoring and coaching. I used to say I can teach you the skills, but if in here I can teach you how to write a phone script to pick up a phone and make sales, but if in here your belief is I'm no good at sales and no one's going to buy off me because I don't have any credibility, you're not even going to pick the phone up. So you're not even going to deliver on a skill, because it's the belief system, and that's what we're telling ourselves. Oh, I'm not. What have I just said? I'm not very good at sales. I'm not very confident. That's a belief, and I struggle with parents and teachers in certain contexts because they shove a lot of stuff into kids, and a lot of our limiting beliefs. We've either got a limiting belief or an empowering belief. And a lot of them have come from when we've been told, and when we're most impressionable is in early years. And guess what we listen to most? Parents and teachers. So what they've told you stuff. I had a school teacher make me stand on a chair and said, you will not pass any exams, when I was 16. Now, to some people, that could have been their affirmation. Fortunately for me, I was wired to go, and I went and studied and passed, not much, but I passed. I passed what he was telling me I wouldn't pass. So affirmation is something you affirm. So be very, very, very aware of what you're saying to yourself. Here's the thing to write down for people that are listening. And again, Brad Sugar's taught me this. What's most important in our lives is what we say about ourselves, to ourselves, when we're by ourselves, because that's your affirmation, and your affirmations need to be positive, empowering affirmations, not negative affirmations. So write them down and start a lot of them with the words I am. Because what you suffix after that becomes part of your identity. I think I am is two of the most powerful words in the English language. I am not very confident. I am learning more and more about property investing. I am learning enough to become financially free. I am a great husband, lover, son. So the affirmations need to start with I am.
Would you say it's another way of your conscious mind almost speaking to your unconscious mind?
That's nicely put. Yeah.
All right. So far, just to recap, because I think this is, I think if we're doing all these things, I think the chances of not achieving that goal become pretty slim. So we've got, and remind me if I miss one. We've got clarity. We've got a mentor. We've got a business coach. We've got micro goals, keeping on track with micro goals. We've got affirmations and visualization, and maybe even a thinking chair. Would you say that's that's everything we need?
Yeah, and if people listening need to re-listen to this, we've said affirmations, and one of the things I said was be totally or brutally honest with yourself. Well, that's an affirmation, isn't it, to a degree? Yeah, be honest with yourself, understand what works for you. And when I say be honest, just avoid colluding. So yeah, clarity is power. That's a great phrase. So more clear I am on the goals, but also keep it simple. I think human beings are complex, and we're all, I think we're wired to complicate things. So the 80-20 rule, what's the 20% that's going to give you 80% of the results? Some of us are wired to be perfectionists, and that's a challenge for those people, because I'm not a perfectionist. I mean, another affirmation is I talked about IVVMs, idealization. I believe in the ideal. Who's my ideal client? What's my ideal revenue? Not perfect, because I don't believe in perfect, because you can always get better. And if I'm a perfectionist, then I'm striving for something I'm never going to achieve. So use the word ideal. What's my ideal lifestyle?
I know that you're, and we spoke about this previously, so it's been a while, but I know that you've got some NLP experience. Is there any part of NLP which would add to this conversation?
Oh, pretty much all of it, I think. I studied with Tony Robbins when I first set my business up, and he's the master of that. He's relabeled some of it, but I've also studied with 3 or 4 great friends who are NLP trainers. And I think maybe it's a bit like a musician. People have different styles within the same. They're probably playing the same notes, but one might be doing it in blues, one might be doing it in jazz. I don't know. A lot of what we've talked about is the basis of NLP. I hear a lot of conflicting thoughts and views. I remember years ago going into a corporate, and it doesn't matter who they were, with a friend of mine. We were talking about doing some training work, and in the interview, in the meeting, they said, "Oh, by the way, if you mention NLP, you'll be out of here." They'll just close down the whole idea of him contracting you to do any work, because they got and that was at a big corporate level. My definition of it is it's the science of behavior and communication. So it's what we've just talked about. Why do some people move more towards the goal, some away from dissatisfaction? That's an NLP philosophy. And NLP has come from lots of different angles. Look at it as the science. There was a lot of study done by Bandler and Grinder who developed it in the 70s, I think. It's the science of communication, how we communicate consciously and unconsciously, and how we behave. So if you want to, and so I think it served me in business, in sales, but it served me in any relationship, coaching relationships to help people get change, but also domestic, personal relationships, on just to be happier. Isn't that fundamentally what we want? So yeah, a lot of what we've talked about, when I said, that the human mind can't tell the difference between what it visualizes and what is real if it's done with enough energy and enough repetition. The unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between truth and fiction. And again, that's born out of, I first heard that when I was studying NLP. Yeah, I think there's just a lot of confusion over the terminology, and it's great for 2 things. One is communicating, whether you want to make a sale, whether you just want to get on with the person you're with, but also therapy, also to help it. Therapy is a word people will have all sorts of connotations about. Helping people affect personal change.
Well, I think if
what we're looking for in everything, isn't it?
That we've talked about so far, I think that would be enough as a plan, if you like. So maybe getting it down on paper and making it concrete. But I think that another thing which may help, if you've got that plan, would be some form of discipline. I don't know whether you put it that way, but have you got any thoughts on discipline?
I did say that Jim Rohn quoted, "There's 2 pains in life, the pain of discipline or the pain of disappointment." And the reason I mention that again is if I focus on that, then it helps me get disciplined, doesn't it? Because then I go, well, if I don't do this, how am I going to be disappointed? Well, if I don't do the exercise and eat sensibly today, tomorrow I'm going to feel stodgy and I'm going to feel disappointed. And so I play around with this, moving away from pain and towards pleasure again. So I think, again, understand yourself. I used to drive down the motorway to go home, and at the bottom of the motorway, I would either turn left to go home or right to the gym. And I'd have this conversation about, I'd rather let's just go left to go home to the pub. Yeah, but if I go to the pub now, I'll feel a bit naff in the morning and it won't feel as good. But if I go right and go to the gym, I'll feel better after training. The next day, I'll feel tighter and I'll feel better and I'll love it. Go to the gym. And I would have this almost argument of, I'd be weighing up and bigging up in my mind. Remember, the mind can't tell the difference. I'd be playing all the good things and all the bad things. And the other way for discipline is get a accountability buddy. Tony Robbins talks about 6 human needs, and we haven't got time for them now. Maybe there's another call there, because that's all around motivation, to understand yourself, really. And one of them is, some people have a need for companionship, have a higher need for what he calls love and connection. So I've coached people who've struggled to go to the gym, and I've said, well, what if you go with your mate? Ah, boy, if we both agree to go to the gym, I won't let him down. So back to this accountability, but also I'll enjoy it more. So now I'm more wired to go anyway because we have a laugh while we're there. So if that works for you, go. I can't do that with the gym because I want to get in, do my work. I'm quite self-disciplined. I've worked on my own for decades. I'm quite well motivated. I don't want to go to the gym with someone else and stand around and talk. I want to go in, work, get out. But it's whatever works for people, you know?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the things you already said kind of cover discipline. So the way I thought of it was like, how do I make myself do something I don't want to do? But a lot of that stuff's covered in what you already talked about. So one thing that I'm interested to know. Sorry, go on.
No, I got you. Okay, because you've just touched on something that's made me remember. When I started coaching, I would say to people, you've got to get better at what you're not good at. And I remember I had a coach who was, I think he was a national weightlifting champion in the US. And he tells a story that said when he took on a coach, his coach said, what's the weakest part of your lift? You want to win the championship? He said, my legs. I hate legs. I avoid training them. It's my weakest part of my lift. And his coach said, learn to love what you hate. And he made me train legs, work legs. And in the end, they became the strongest part of my lift and I won the championship. Now, if someone tells me something, it makes sense. I go, oh yeah, I can run with that. So I would coach my clients on what's your weakest point? Let's get better. And then a coach of mine years later said, why are you pushing people up a hill to do stuff? Why are you pushing water up a hill and trying to get people to do stuff they don't like? Focus them on their strengths. Leverage out the other stuff. Now, maybe weightlifting, he needed to look at it all. Could he have won the championship by getting even stronger and stronger in these better areas? I don't know. But what I don't do stuff I don't like doing. I want to be able to pay someone else to do it or leverage it out in some way, whether you can leverage through money, through people, through technology. I want to focus on my strengths because that's what you are best at. And the reality is, if you're good at something, you probably enjoy it. And if you enjoy it, you get better at it. So actually, there's a great point, 80-20 rule, focus on the things that you're best at. That's not to say, when it comes to personal stuff like exercise and diet, then maybe I've got to play around with all the other psychologies we've talked about today in order to get disciplined, in order to get consistent. But just balance that out as well, especially in business and life. If it's stuff I'm not best at and I don't like, is there a way of getting the result without having to do that?
Well, what I was going to say was, no, you're fine. If you got something in addition to add, I definitely want to hear about it. But I'm interested to know that because there's all sorts of things that I would like to do in addition as a result of this conversation. I'm interested to know whether you're in the same boat or not.
I think I want more of what I want. I think I'm older than you, Tom, and that's just. People have said this to me when I was younger. I've noticed my focus and priorities have changed over the last 5 to 10 years. And I question this with myself and go, is it because you're lazy, colluded, whatever? I've realized I don't want to work hard. And I do have an affirmation that says you can leverage things. You can work smart, not hard. We've been locked down in Spain. I've got the most beautiful house in the village, that right on the edge of the village, looking down the mountain to the sea. It ticked boxes we'd never defined. So is it fortunate? It over and above ticked more than we'd got in our goal and what we talked about. And I'm thinking, I just want to spend more time being at peace, being with people I want to be with. So I don't know whether that's a laziness, whether it's a collusion, but there are definitely some things I want to do. I want to lift out of this so I can ride my motorbike with my friends. I haven't been scuba diving since I was out here because we didn't get round to it, and then lockdown. I think the thing you've got to ask yourself, and you said at the beginning, your goals will be different to mine. Absolutely. And I think the question back to be open and honest with yourself. Is it what you really want? Are you content with it? Why are we doing anything? We're doing anything ultimately for satisfaction. It's an emotion. We either want to be satisfied or happy or peaceful, don't we? If you boil anything down, why do I want the money? I want to buy the motorbike. Why do I want to buy the motorbike? Because I want to go riding with my mates in the mountains. Why do you want to do that? Because I love it. It's fun. That's the emotion, fun. Why do I want to make money and financially retire so I can travel? Why do you want to travel? Because I want to spend time traveling with Mary. Why? Because I love being with her and I love traveling. Love, it's ultimately an emotion. So when someone says to me, oh, I'm happy doing this, my question is, really? Because if you can honestly say yes, and you're not kidding yourself, is there more I could do? Yeah, but right now, I want more of, I want to create some more free time. So I've said to you at the beginning of this call, I'm busy with our business, and it's great because it's growing. And for me, the more members we have in our post-party club, the more results those people are getting. And I know what, I was going to say juices me. That's a Tony Robbins saying, and Mary hates that. But what juices me, what ignites me is seeing people get results and getting results, and especially just sharing my stuff that I know works. So that's great. But so for me, I just want to create some more time, because what I love doing is stopping work. I've got some weights here on the roof terrace. I've got some sunbat loungers. I have a snooze after I've trained. I can listen to the radio, turn the radio off, listen to nothing right now other than natural sounds, and then go to the bar maybe. And I just want more time to be able to do that. So I think it's back to just be honest with yourself. You know, if there's more you want to do, then the question is, how can I leverage that? And is it balanced? What's the end game? Because I meet people that are workaholics and they go, well, I'm happy working. Really? Maybe you are because you think you are, because that's all you've got used to. And if we do something often enough, we get used to it. But be honest with yourself. And maybe it's not just being honest with yourself. Maybe it's just take the time out to think, what would you really like to do? Because we're capable and we deserve to achieve whatever you want to achieve. So yeah, I think there's no right or wrong. Just be mindful that you haven't got into that rut. I'm not saying you, but Brad Sugar says a rut is just a coffin with the ends kicked out. You know, you're just doing this because we do get into habits. 21 attempts to create a habit. So if I'm not careful, then could I just become like Groundhog Day, photocopying my life? I don't want to do that. But I'm actually more content and rounded with what we have now than I've been in my business life for a long time. So is that about achieving more? Just whatever it is to you.
Well, I was going to say it sounds like you're content, and then you mentioned that at the end. So happy to hear that you're content. And I think it's also a good point that maybe needed to be in the episode, because if people haven't got the right goals and then they work towards them for a long time, then that's probably not a good thing.
There's a great saying that says, have you got the ladder up against the wrong wall? And I've met it in people in business, but certainly in employment and corporate where they're working on those goals. And I don't know, I see people in corporate that are working long hours and they're the slave to the man. And then they get older and go, I didn't spend the time with my family or my loved ones. So, and I understand that unless you stop and think, you might not think it's possible. And even when you do stop and think, you might not think it's possible. The question is, I believe anything's possible. And so the question is, what do I need to do to be able to get there? But step one is to sit and define what you want. I am content. I've had to learn that. The same coach who taught me about stop pushing water up a hill, work with people's strengths, told me it was the journey, not the destination. I said, no, I want the results. I want the destination. And I still sort of do, but it is more the journey. And that's why I can take more time straight away. And I've started doing that. I've realigned because we got in a bit of a rut and I've gone, I want to take more time, and I'm stopping work in the afternoons and chilling because that's what I enjoy doing. So it is the journey. And I've had to learn that because I've been focused on the money. So yeah, ideal, not perfect. Remember, my lifestyle, is it perfect? People will be listening going, there is the spiritual saying that says it's perfect. Everything's perfect right now. NLP says, supposition says, we're all doing the best we can with what we've got right now. Life is perfect right now. And for a lot of people, it might not feel like it, but it is what it is. And my brother-in-law stated that when he was terminally ill a lot. And I admire him for that because he just said, it is what it is. He couldn't change that. cannot change the right now, or I can change what I want to do, but it's perfect right now. So it is all in here. And I come back to ideal, you know, it's what you make it.
Well, I love speaking to you, as you know, so thanks for all the information. You touched upon post-party club a couple of times. So do you want to speak about that before we close?
Yeah, of course, always. It's my business. I mean, very simply, I niche into helping people get more business out of LinkedIn. And I've got some incredible business partners around the world. There's 6 of us. And we've pioneered something that helps people get thousands of views of their LinkedIn posts. But it's also the thick end of the wedge is helping people understand how to write engaging content and how to engage effectively, because people's skill set is poor. People are being bombarded on LinkedIn and social media nowadays, and it's with poor messages, poor content and stuff. I think in essence, just to say, if people are posting and are wanting to get better results, better engagement, better numbers of views, if they just go to www.postpartyclub.com, there's a heads up video of me talking about it, but then there's also a great video case study of one of our members going, here's when I've been engaging with the post-party system, and here's outside, look at the difference. It's staggering. It's instant results. And I said that fires me up. And we're just getting more and more people get some great results. I know you utilize it in your LinkedIn marketing and social media marketing. So you'll know it's not just about the mechanics, which we've mastered, but it's also about understanding how to write powerful content. A friend of mine, one of my business partners, said he got asked by somebody the other day, what would you do again if you started over? He said, I'd learn to become a master content writer quicker. I actually use the word marketeer or salesperson, but content writing is the same, whether you're writing it to say it on the phone, for emails, for websites, whatever it is. And I quite like that. It's about becoming a master content writer to be able to engage with people. So yeah, anyone who's either posting or thinking of posting on LinkedIn, just check out postpartyclub.com.
Okay. Well, thanks again for all the great information, and I will speak to you soon.
Perfect. Thanks, Tom. It's great to see you, and stay safe in England. Speak soon.